Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. We know that there are different categories of brachas that we say. Basically, it's categorized either birchas ha-mitzvahs, the bracha that you make before you perform a mitzvah, or birchas ha-nanim. Birchas ha-nanim is a bracha that you make before you have any pleasure. Hashem blessed us, gave us the opportunity to eat food, blessed us with food, sometimes other pleasures that we have. So those are all called thanking Hashem for the hana that He gave us the capability to enjoy. And then there's the birchas ha-mitzvahs. So when the Gemara in Brachas discusses all these laws, there are in the Achrayim, especially in the Svarim of today, there are a couple of interesting shilas that come up, and I'll discuss two of them. One of them is, we know the mitzvah, the bracha of Birchas HaTorah. Every morning in Birchas HaShachar, we thank Hashem for all the good things He's done to us. But then we also say the bracha of Torah. And now there's a big machlokes if that's a Birchas HaMitzvahs, if it's a bracha min HaTorah. It's a long discussion for itself. The question becomes, we know that before we learn, and that's the reason right after the bracha, we actually say psukim of the Chumash, Yirechacha Hashem v'yishmerecha, because we made a bracha, we want the bracha to be chal on something. We know that before we learn something, you have to make brachas. You have to make brachas HaTorah. That's the bracha on the Torah. How about people making shiurim, public classes? There are many. It's very nice that you have a large attendance, but the people who are coming are going to hear a shir in Torah, and they are not going to make the bracha. They didn't make today. They don't. Most probably they don't even know that such a bracha exists of birchas HaTorah. Is it wrong? Is it a problem to teach somebody or to learn with somebody or give a class in Torah when that person who you're going to be speaking to or the class you'll be giving, there are many people who have not made the bracha on birchas HaTorah? Another question, a similar question. You're serving food, or even if you're selling food, and you're selling food, you're from a Jew, you're selling kosher food, but the people buying are people who don't know yet about kashrus, and they definitely don't know about the brachas. They definitely don't know what bracha to make on what. So you're basically selling food or giving food, or making it available to people who are going to eat food without making a bracha. So the question is, we know the general Isser in the Torah lifnei iver lo sit in the michshel, that you're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. We know there are many categories in this rule. When it applies, is it a direct effect from what I'm doing? Sometimes a misayeh, just helping him do it and not hand feeding him is not usher. What does halacha say about these two situations? Again, giving a class. In other words, you're giving somebody Torah when he's not necessarily making the bracha on the Torah. And the case where you're serving food, you're selling food to somebody who you're not sure that he's going to make a bracha on the food. Actually, about the birchas HaTorah, Rav Yoshev Olav Shalom paskined for two reasons. It's not a problem to teach Torah to people who you don't know if they made a birchas HaTorah. His two reasons are, and again, each one of them has a lot of details in the Shakal V'Taya, in Halacha. In Siman Samach, in Orach Chaim, in Hilchas Krishma, over there it's discussed, and many poskim hold, that mitzvahs tzrichas kavana. Mitzvahs tzrichas kavana means when you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah is only complete when you are fully aware and if you have the right kavana, knowing that you're doing the mitzvah. You're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. And only then it's considered as you did the mitzvah properly. There's big discussions, and the Mishnah Brachas talks about if somebody's writing Torah, but he's writing Torah just for a parnasa, he's not necessarily writing it, or even the mezuzahs and tefillin for the sake of Torah. If he's writing it for parnasa, his mind is on the money. So would that fulfill any obligation? Would that fulfill any problem? So being that many shittas hold that a mitzvah is only considered a mitzvah when you have kavanah, put yourself in those people's shoes. When they come, many of them that come to hear a class, they don't know enough about Torah. They're coming to hear a lecture. They're coming to hear a shir. Sure, they're coming for Judaism. But they're not having the kavanah, they're doing it l'shem the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And because they didn't have that kavanah, the chiyuv of the bracha is not needed. It's only when you do the mitzvah properly. That's one angle that he mentions. Another heter, he says, perhaps you could say the mitzvah of the saying the bracha on the Torah before you read it, it is something that it's a positive thing that should be done. However, there is no isser to learn Torah without a bracha. It means you don't have an isser if you don't hear if you learn Torah without a bracha. You should, better would be learning Torah with a bracha. And therefore, if somebody can't bench, or if somebody doesn't know a bracha, or in this case, with somebody else's teaching, should it stop him from from teaching the class because somebody might not make a bracha? For sure not. That was the first discussion on how the psak din from Abu Yoshev was about that. Legabe the food item, there is other loopholes. When you serve food, from one hand you're thinking it's you're giving somebody food, and that person might not make a bracha. But let's look at the good side, the other side. The other side is that you're serving him food. Abi now he's eating kosher. If he's only eating if he's hungry. Every time you're serving him food, you're taking away the possibility of him eating elsewhere, and there's very strong possibility what he's eating elsewhere is not kosher. So the fact that he'll be eating here without a bracha is still much better because you're preventing him from doing something negative. On top of that, there is a shita from the Netziv that says, similar to what we just said about Birchas HaTorah, there is no isser on eating food without a bracha. It's not an isser to eat food. Again, not everybody agrees with this. But the Netziv says there is no isser to eat food without a bracha. It's rather a positive thing. Try that it's a mitzvah, it's a chiyuv, that when you eat food, you should make a bracha. So I am not making an isser by feeding him food, because even if he didn't make a bracha, there is no isser. Obviously, it's better to make sure they make a bracha. So the perfect world, what would be, is if you know the person or you feel comfortable with the person, or even if not, tell people to make a bracha. Make sure if it's obviously somebody you're close enough, you make sure they make a bracha. And if you don't have that relationship, some suggest at least put a sign that the different brachas that are for different foods. At least you helped out, that you took it off your shoulders, so to say, that you show them that this is the way it's supposed to be done, and therefore you're not obligated in any isser of mevnei iver in any way.